Yeah, as mentioned today is about harmonious bilingual experience, and just now we have a panic, experience, and so let hope we have a harmonious moment now. I want to talk about, why language experience, especially new language experience, can affect children's well-being, social emotional well-being in this presentation. I am going to talk about four aspects. The number one is the concepts of a harmonious bilingual development and bilingual experience. And the second part is I want to decompose a harmonious bilingual experience into three components like children's language use, children's literacy experience, and children's bilingual proficiency, and see how these, components will influence social emotional well-being of children separately. Then I will talk about in Singapore context. I know, we all know that bilingualism is a very um, difficult topic because it's really case by case and context by context. So I'm going to share some of my experience in Singapore and highlight the importance of mother tongue language. We call ethnic language as mother tongue language in Singapore, but in other cases, other places, you can call it a heritage language. Your home language. It's a very broad term. I want to highlight how important it is to children's bilingual development and also social emotional well-being. Lastly, I will talk about, in some very specific situation about harmonious bilingual experience, how to use ebooks, reading this kind of multimedia to enhance bilingual reading experience and then influence children's bilingual experience. Okay, before I talk about harmonious bilingual experience, I want to highlight a concept by Annick de Hauer, which is who's very famous in our field in terms of child bilingual development. She proposed this idea several years ago and emphasized that by harmonious bilingual development applies when family with young children in a language context, in a language setting, do not generally experience any problem because of bilingual situation or have a very positive, subjective experience with bilingualism. So harmonious, harmony means, no problem or very positive, good experience. Okay, you may ask me one question. What is, subjective well-being? She more or less used here. Subject well-being is a kind of a psychological concept, and it can generally be defined in terms of the experience of pleasant affect, unpleasant affect, and life satisfaction. So it's some type of your mood, attitude, feeling towards this certain experience. And from harmonious bilingual development concept, you can see Annick really divide into this experience into two extremes, and either as positive subject experience or frustrated, conflicted, very negative experience. And she emphasized, families with very young children. Okay, I developed some concept based on her work, and I call it harmonious bilingual experience. And in my concept, I really emphasize the subcomponents of bilingual experience. What kind of, key components can attribute to children's eventual social emotional health? So here I identify three key factors. One is language and literacy input. The second one is language use. And the last one is language proficiency. Okay, I'm going to analyze one by one. Okay, before I move on to next slide, I want to emphasize Annick's concept really emphasize young children. However, in my concept, I want to cover a broader range of children, actually cover from very young, infants to teenagers. So more children involved. Okay, as I mentioned, there are three components I just mentioned. So the first one is language and literacy input. Here, actually, I especially want to emphasize one type of input, that is book reading. We found in the past that children's book has a lot of social emotional knowledge for kids to develop their social emotional competence. Because children's book, when you open a book, you can find a reference to social interaction and emotion happen for every 3 sentences, and there are a lot of plots and narratives centered around interaction between people or animals, and they're talking about friendship, honesty, a lot of merits or social emotional related topics. So reading allows children to understand our social norms and also our values, help them to grasp the language skills, but also they understand how to express these social norms and behaviors. So not only the content of the books really matter, but also the conversation during the reading will help children to grasp some social emotional ideas. Shared book reading can improve children's social skills, help them practice skills such as turn-taking, self-expressions, and also we know that language and culture are intertwined. So these type of reading experience can really help children to develop their social emotional values. And bilingualism actually can expose our children to dual language, dual cultures, and for let them to be exposed to additional viewpoints, perspectives, and different type of culture merits, attitudes. The second component I want to emphasize is called language output. There's many functions about language out use. You say it, you not only hear it, you must use it. So traditionally, when we argue the benefits of language output for language proficiency, children's language development, we borrow a lot of hypotheses, such as the output hypothesis um, brought up by Swain. There are certain functions like, children can notice their errors and can test their language, can also build up their meta-linguistic reflection. But I want to emphasize, so language use, when children are using their languages, actually they are not only practice their linguistic skills, but also people observation skills, because when they converse with people, they need to notice other people's facial expressions, their body language. These type of subtle information can let them understand others better, and help them to acquire some social skills. So bilingual language can provide more opportunities and context for children to observe people from different culture groups. How do they communicate? How do they deliver their ideas? How they, show their agree or disagree when you talk to them. Okay. The last component I want to emphasize from bilingualism is language proficiency. For this, I want to first of all share a sad story. It happened in Singapore 2 years ago. You can see that the mother made police report for her 10-year-old son, who has been bullied in Singapore for not speaking English. According to my memory, this is a new immigrant family from China, mainland China, and the kid couldn't speak fluent English, and he suffered a lot bully from peers in the school setting. I think because many countries like United States, Canada, Australia, many immigrant countries, we have a lot of sad stories like that. Because of the poor proficiency in the societal dominant language, kids have been bullied and teased, have been, made fun of for their poor pronunciation, accent, in a lot of ways. So this is not a very new to us. But when we look at this proficiency in the bilingual context, actually, we found, we can generally divide children's setting into two groups, school and home. And at school, children, if children don't have a good proficiency in their societal language, actually, this type of proficiency can affect teacher-student relationship, their peer relationship, and gradually children can be very inverted and have some problem behaviors. And at home, usually, if kid has very poor mother tongue languages skills, they will have some, poor relationship with their parents. More often, actually, they have a very bad communication with their seniors in their families, and such as grandma, grandpa, and usually they can't communicate with themselves, with each other. So that will affect family cohesion. And we also have a lot of case study to show that actually very poor mother tongue languages, proficiency in children actually will influence or affect, family cohesion, family relationship. So both, proficiencies really matter to children's social emotional well-being in the long run. Okay, so I began to pay special attention to this topic, not only from Annick's work, but also from Han's work. In 2010, Professor Han published a very influential, very engaging study, which include a lot of participants. You can see more than 14,000 children get involved in this study from 800 public and 200 private schools. So Prof. Han looked into children's bilingual experience and also their social emotional well-being. For the social emotional well-being part, she used the teacher report. So these teachers frequently report children's social emotional well-being, from preschool to primary school. So preschool more often. And then teacher rated children's, skills, social competence, and problem behaviors very often as well. And not only these type of measures, Professor Han also looked at family use report and also children's English academic achievement. So she looked into the frequency of mother tongue used between children and parents. And also she looked at children's, English proficiency, English grades in kindergarten and primary school. Okay, now I will show you some pictures to illustrate the relationship or the that Prof. Han, identified. So from the left side, you can see the internal problem behaviors, and the right side is about children's external problem behaviors, which means that the higher the score is, actually the less ideal the situation is. And then you can see in this paper, the authors divide the population into many groups: fluent bilinguals, non-English dominant bilinguals, and English dominant bilinguals, white English monolinguals, non-English monolinguals. Okay, so we can see, from very beginning, from kindergarten, children from bilingual population, the fluent bilingual, groups actually start lower than their monolingual peers. And over these years, actually, their development of these internalizing problems is lower than their peers in other groups. And also you can see the external problem behaviors, the same trend. Non-English dominant bilingual, fluent bilingual, actually they are the lowest two groups in terms of developing these problem behaviors. Okay, now let's look at children's internal skills, interpersonal skills, and approach to learn. And you can for these two graphs, the higher score means the better the situation is. And then you can see that, again, children in the fluent bilinguals or non-English dominant bilinguals groups, actually, they outperform their peers in terms of internal skills, and so does approaches to learn. So give us a lot of very useful information to say, oh, actually, bilingual children, if we really put, cultivate our kids into being a bilingual, maybe they can enjoy better social emotional well-being in the long run. And this is not the only study I want to share with you today before I share my own findings. So another very famous study is from Adam Winsler, Prof. Adam Winsler, using Miami cohort. So you can see from this table that bilingual experience and children's many different aspects performance. So here in this picture, you can see three groups. So monolingual English, predominantly Spanish speakers, and emergent bilinguals. What we found is actually, so let's look at self-control and attachment. You can see that emergent bilinguals outperform the other two groups in terms of these social emotional well-being indicators. And when we talk about problematic behaviors, actually these children have much significantly less concerns than their peers in other groups. Okay, how about Singapore? First of all, allow me to share with you something about Singapore. Singapore has four official languages, English and three mother tongues, Mandarin Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. You can see over the past few years, English turned to be the societal dominant language, and has been used predominantly in many families. However, all the mother tongues are decreasing dramatically, over the years, 2 decades. And in 2021, my colleagues and I published a paper using a large cohort, 805 K1 children at 4 to 5 years old. We want to know the relationship between children's bilingual experience in Singapore and their social emotional well-being. For social emotional well-being, we use a very famous teacher reported survey called Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire, SDQ. So in this questionnaire, there are five aspects: emotional symptoms, conduct problems, hyperactivity or intention, peer relation problems, and prosocial behaviors. After collecting data, we combined the first four aspects to have a total difficulty level score, and then we leave the fifth category as prosocial behavior. Besides that, we also collect data about children's family language use and also bilingual vocabulary skills, as receptive vocabulary is one of the best indicator of children's early oral proficiency. So the outcome is very interesting. We found actually, after controlling many different aspects of children's, individual differences like their age, their gender, their emotion recognition skills, nonverbal intelligence, family income, mother's education, many aspects which has been indicated in the literature that they can influence children's social emotional learning. And we still found the role of bilingualism here. We found two specific things. One is bilingual vocabulary, the other is bilingual language use. So for vocabulary, we found English and children's English and mother tongue vocabulary proficiency can influence children's total difficulty level. And the higher their proficiency is, the lower their total difficulty level is. So suggests a connection between these, children's language competence and their social emotional regulation. And very interestingly, we also found children's societal language proficiency, which is English in this case, can influence children's social interaction with peers. The better their English score is, the better their prosocial score is. Okay, besides the proficiency, we also found children's duration of language use matters. So here we use the indicator year of bilingual language use as a indicator of their general bilingual usage. And we found the more years they use dual languages, actually the better their prosocial score is. It indicates that people's knowledge, thinking approach, and means of action actually are cultivated by these social interaction, and language output originates in or serves the purpose of such interaction. Okay. As I mentioned in Singapore, our context is not very unique. Actually, we observe this, trend globally. But I still want to emphasize our real situation now is, English is way better. English learning environment is way better than their mother tongue languages in terms of input, usage, media, and reading materials. So all at different aspects. And also their proficiency also fall into the same trend. Their English is way better their mother tongue languages, no matter which ethnic pairs, ethnic groups you are looking into. Okay, so then I wonder, okay, if we really emphasize to cultivate children's mother tongue language in early years, so can it also influence their social emotional learning, social emotional well-being? So in the second study, I look at 202 K1 children. I use SDQ, and I want to know whether family language use and Mandarin proficiency in children will influence children's SDQ performance, their total difficult level, and prosocial skills. And again, I found a similar trend, that is children's language usage, especially their mother tongue reading frequency, reading materials can influence their total difficulty level and prosocial skills, which means that children with a more literacy input in their mother tongue actually have better prosocial skills. Okay, so the next question is, okay, so reading is fantastic. It can reading in two languages, especially if you have a societal language, reading in a weaker language should be very useful to promote children's social emotional learning and mother tongue language learning. So how about we just encourage mothers to read more often? This question is very complex because even though this seems a very simple request, but it could be very difficult to many young parents because their own mother tongue proficiency or heritage proficiency is decreasing or not good enough. According to one of my studies, I found that local Singaporean mothers, if you ask them to rate their Mandarin proficiency, I found about 17% mothers will rate them very low. And these are very low or medium, level parents will speak significantly less mother tongue language than their peers who rate themselves as a high or near native-like proficiency. And so I was wondering, okay, how about we use some other approach to help these parents to read more often in their mother tongue languages, and then look at some studies, the significant predictors. I decided to try to combine book reading with media, so to use ebooks. And then because ebooks traditionally have been found to be very useful to help children to learn a second language. And then I designed a study to look at whether ebooks can really help children to learn better mother tongue languages. And for the sake of time, I won't show you the video. And but in this study, we do find that well-designed ebooks can actually help children to pay more attention to the reading materials and can learn better. And across if the book is very good actually across the 4 readings, repetitive readings, children keep pay attention to these reading materials. And these figures show regardless whether children have low or high proficiency, actually, ebooks can really help. Well-designed ebooks with animation can help children to learn their mother tongue. So yeah, I think I won't share with you this slide, and I want to how to say end my today's presentation using a framework to summarize what I just shared with you, some of the studies. And we found actually children's early bilingualism can be influenced by their parents, and the extent of parents' use language actually will influence will be affected by their own proficiency and their own belief and attitude towards bilingualism. So then children's later language bilingual use and literacy, especially reading experience and proficiency, will affect their own social emotional well-being. Even we control parental, social well-being, the influence from parents' social emotional well-being. So we kind of I try to consolidate all the different points I made in this kind of framework, and I published this framework in Frontiers in Psychology last year. So if you're interested, please let me know. I can send you the paper to read. So yeah, last year I collect some data trying to verify my points, the framework, and I found, in general, Singapore's parents are very positive towards bilingual and bilingual education. So if they are happy to speak both English and Mandarin to their children, they think, speaking both languages can give them positive social phase. They think, speaking good languages can help their children to find a good job, and they want their kids to be active bilinguals. So they are very happy if their kid can enter to be a very active bilingual, and they think bilingualism is a societal basic need, and yeah, they are very positive. However, when I put parents' bilingual proficiency and parental belief and attitude together to predict parental language usage, I only found their proficiency will affect their bilingual use in the Singapore context, probably because most of parents already very positive towards bilingualism. So there's a little variation in these components. Then I also found that in my data that the parental bilingual language and interaction will influence their activities with children, the extent they use the 2 languages, and the literacy reading frequency with their children, and also their language use will influence children's proficiency. So this is not a surprise to us. So this kind of link has been confirmed. And lastly, I want to know whether children's language use, literacy activities, proficiency will influence their own social emotional skills, even with control parents, social emotional skills. And the answer is yes. And we found bilingual vocabulary, reading frequency, and child book numbers can actually correlate, either positively or negatively with their children's social emotional well-being, and specifically if children have a better proficiency, and if they reading more frequently in both languages, they have better social skills. And if family possess more child book numbers, actually children usually have less total difficult level. Okay, this is the end of my presentation, and yeah, thank you very much for your listening and for your patience for my slides. Thank you very much.